This is a video showing how to create an entire study using OpenScales, especially the OpenScales Study Builder. I'm Shane Mueller, professor at Michigan Tech, the developer of OpenScales. And I'm going to show you how to do this and host it on a free website that will let you collect data by sending out the specific URL to participants or putting it in your experiment management system. So normally OpenScales is a repository of open psychology scales. Just for example, the AI attitude scale, if you go to the website, you can run a demo and you see it says demo mode. This only has a few questions. You could download the data file here and get a report. And in a pinch, you could run a study like this, have people take it and email you this report and combine the data. But it's really meant to be hosted on a web server. And if you have access to a web server, and this could be maybe your university gives you access to a server. They might have cPanel access, which makes it all graphical. I'll show you an example of a similar system in a little bit. Or just like a Linux server, you can create a study, and the OpenScale software will handle all of the typical things you need for a study, including running the questions, uploading data, handling your IRB, and even doing experiments, meaning randomization to different branches. So typically you might pick one of the hundreds of scales here to use, or several of them really, or you may have other additional questions you want to ask, so you're going to have to create your own scale using the OSD file format. I won't go into how you do that in this video, but it's done through the PEBL system. The PEBL launcher has a scale builder in it that can be run either through this online system or through the PEBL system if you want to do something in your lab and not connect to the internet. But the OpenScales website has this scale builder tab. So there's just a few things. This code is going to be where the package lives on your server. So we'll just call it study 1. There's parameters that you can set. The default one here is a participant ID. So this is always here by default, so that you can link your experiment system to be able to put an identifier in and then collect to ensure that the participant completed the study, and then as you'll see in a little bit, can sync back to your server to get credit. The next, but there's other parameters you might be able to add. You probably typically won't use these, but some scales and tests have different options, and you could specify a language here if you want to use a language other than English, and the scales support and have the translations in them. So then there's this endpoint, and the easiest thing to do is just leave this the way it is. What will happen is that this website will build a package that includes this collect PHP software, which gives a place for when a person runs this on their own computer, it will upload the data back to your server at this point. So you can just leave this fixed. There's also a session log that gives you a lot more detail about, maybe you have several tests, you can see when they started each one, so you can ensure that they're taking them seriously, or maybe they ended early and you want to know if you give them another session where to start, or whether to give them credit. You can also prevent them from taking it multiple times, although this will just collect multiple rounds of data with the same subject code usually. if you do that. So those are some of the basic setups. Now, in online study, you're going to usually have a consent form and what this does is will automatically create an OSD file with this consent, just a couple instruction pages, and then a yes or no, do you agree to do this? And if they say no, then the runner will stop there. So we'll do an AI study, and then you normally, like at my university and probably most places, if you're not 18, you can't really give consent and you have to go through other procedures. So we have a second question here with an age gate, and we can just put random text here. This will also handle some simple HTML markup. So I could do a header here, and italic text, a few things like this. Oftentimes, a consent form is many pages, and so you can add all the text in multiple pages to see if it works. And this is going to be the text on the button. So then you'll usually have a scale. And let's just start this. So if you'd created a scale with the scale builder, you could upload it here. I don't have one right now, but maybe I want to start with a demographic. And what this will do is allow you to search all of the scales in the OpenScales repository and link them directly. So here's a common set of questions that NIMH or NIH used to require for studies. I'm not sure if they still do. You can also add language parameters and other form parameters if this scale had specific parameters. And finally, randomization. So if you have maybe an experimental design where you're implementing some instructions in one way or another that you that you want to randomize the order of, you can put multiple scales in the same randomization group. So random group 0 means it's fixed. It's going to be given in the order it's specified. But if you give it, say, random group 1, and you have 2 scales in random group 1, the order of those will be randomly selected in place. And if you have 2 different ones you want to, 2 different groups you want to randomize, you can use random group 1 and random group 2. We'll add another scale here. Maybe the AI scale we did before, AI attitude scale. You can also have branches. So this will say, I'm going to do half the people will do one scale, half the people will do another scale. And you can add multiple ones. So maybe you came up with a custom training, which is a set of instructions that you can implement in one of these scales, so that you can have a true random comparison. I'll just close that for now. We could have a message at the end. Thank you. This is the end. And finally, especially if you're using a experiment management system or an online system, you usually want to be able to give credit at the end without having to yourself search through data files and go link back to and give credit manually. So this redirect page will do this. So this is where the PID comes in. We'll talk about that when I show you how to test it. But by default, it's going to give you a endpoint that we'll build and put on our own server. So if you wanted, this will just basically give you a log of people who have finished with the different studies at the end of the study, so you could go manually assign credit. But if you have Sona, there's a different URL here, and there's going to be a study ID. You put in a key to each study and a user ID so that they automatically will get credit when they complete this. So all this, simple, a simple set of studies, we can build this. It creates, first thing it creates is this .osc file. This is really the logic that will that it generates the instructions, the sequence of scales, the parameters, and things like that. But it will also create an entire server package, and we'll look at that in just a second. But this OSC file, if you have a more complex system, maybe you can update that. You want to update this if you have it already loaded, and just change a few little things. We also may have a way of uploading this into PEBL Online so that you can run this via the PEBL system. So, so that creates a download package like this. And I'm going to move it over here for a second. So now if you want to host this on some type of website, I did a search and I found a lot of different free servers that offer their own subdomains. If you search for free server with subdomain, I found this one which was easy to sign up for free, and although they offer to register domains and add a lot of different site building tools, they offer a cPanel or a version of cPanel, and a domain name I picked, OpenScales, and then they have this HSTNME, and it really doesn't matter because you're giving people this URL to start their study with. It offers either a cPanel or a file manager that looks like this, and it will probably start you out in something that looks like this, and you have to read their instructions, and at least in this case, the web files are served out of the htdocs folder. And it has, let's see, if I open this up, it has a way of uploading and unzipping. If your system doesn't allow an unzip through a graphical interface, you might unzip it on your own computer and upload files individually, or upload the set of files. But I'm going to upload that that zip package. Okay, so it put this here, and we can just take a look at this now. This has a README which gives you instructions for deployment. It has that OSC file we found and some other HTML and JavaScript files. These chain runner is the HTML that hosts the entire chain of scales, and the scale runner is the code that runs an individual scale. It also puts each scale in here so that this chain runner will run each one of these individually. And here's the AIAS scale, here's the demographic scale, and here's the consent form it built. And the consent form is just another OSD file. It doesn't know how to read that, so we won't look at that for the moment. And it also then has these two PHP endpoints where data gets uploaded. So this was the name of the server that I got the free server, and now that I've moved this to study 1 and let it, sometimes it takes a few minutes to sync. Now this is the URL that you would send people to, or at least initially. And by default, if you go to this main page, it loads the index.html, and it will create an anonymous participant code that's going to be the same, because I think it's generated based on your IP address and browser settings and things like that. So you can begin the study, here was the first, this was the consent form we did. Yes, I'm 18 or older. I agree to participate. And now here's the questionnaire for demographics. And then it'll take us to this AI attitude scale. And here's that last instruction, debriefing message, and then credit recorded. So now there's no UI for the data, but if you have a file manager like this, you can go into server and the data will appear here. Every single one of these scales will have its own data set. So I could go to the demographic, and here's the random username we generated. It has within here a report. I think I can preview this to see what the report looks like. It has an individual response by response data file, but then more typically, since it's a survey, you probably want to it all in a single CSV file. So all of that's all the people taking this will have their data pooled there, and we can just try that out here. So if I were to run this again, going back to that initial page, oh well, it says already completed, but I can start it again, and I think that's a new, looks like it's a new subject code, but I could, another way you could do this is give people the URL, and they may have their own, another code that they put in for, through some credit system. So to get credit, and you may have sent them an email that says that you're this person. We can get all the same. Okay, and then when we're done, it will redirect, receive credit again, 999919. If we go back to the file manager, now the demographic has one folder per each time it was run. If we look at the pooled file, I can see one row for each time it was run. And now, like the AI scale, again, we'll have a report for every person, but then this pooled file as well that you can import into a stats analysis program or a spreadsheet. One last thing, we talked initially about this user ID. So I can also, hopefully I can get this. So I could also do something like this. I don't know if you caught that. So it caught that we have done it already, but I just refreshed that. And so oftentimes in a system like Sona, you can take a user ID or a user token and embed it in a URL. So this might be the database user ID. So you can set this up to load this automatically. And it will fill in, and then they can begin the study. You can actually, the README shows you see how this captures it here too. You could bypass that first one by sending them to this page, but it's a little more complicated to set up. So you could send them to the main page with the ID, and it'll show up sort of as a start, or you can send them here, and with whatever the user code is there. If you say no, it ends right there. But let's try this one more time. Yes, yes. There's a demographic and your belief in AI. And then the final credit record. We'll look one more time at this so we can see. Let's look at the consent form this time. Now we have really only completed from the 3 that succeeded. But I think this pooled will have 4 lines because the time I said no gets recorded as well. Anyway, so that is an easy way to do a study using open scales. If you're only using these open scales, you can actually use the study builder to generate a study, upload it to a server. You can get a server like this for free and run the study and manage your data through a graphical interface like cPanel or this file manager.ai. And just gives you another easy way to access these scales. Thank you.